Are you too stressed out at work? Well, New York is considering a new law that can make it illegal for employers to expect their employees to check their emails outside of work. Brooklyn Councilman Rafael Espinal spearheaded this bill, believes the law would allow workers to decompress, reduce anxiety, and be able to perform better when they get to the work the next day. My next guest, on the other hand, is wondering what happened to personal responsibility. He's a CEO who used a snowflake test to weed out whiny, entitled millennials. He joins me now, the Silent Partner Marketing CEO, Kyle Reyes. Kyle, is this law going to pass? First of all, this is a serious law, right?
It's not often that I'm glad my business is in Connecticut, but today's one of those days. This is a serious law, and I think that in the form that it is right now, I can't imagine that it's going to pass. But stranger things have happened. Mr.
Espinal, the New York senator, person in public service, he's actually done some great things with public housing. I think this is quite out there. But this work-life balance, you actually had a snowflake test.
We did. On the surface, on paper, this sounds great. We all want more work-life balance, right? But work-life balance is not something you can legislate. Work-life balance is something that you have to achieve through accepting personal responsibility and taking accountability for your own schedule and your own career path.
Who ever heard of work-life balance before, though?
It doesn't exist. It does not exist anymore. Work-life balance is something that's unique to the individual. It's unique to the person. I mean, I work 80 hours a week, but that's my decision. So to pass legislation saying you can't force your employees to check emails after hours, there are no exemptions in the way it's written right now that we can see that provide exemptions for police or for medical professionals. And so this really hasn't been thought through.
So you have mentioned several other laws in New York, and it has a history of doing something similar to crazy things here in New York. You mentioned it to me in the commercial break.
Correct. If you think about back to when legislation was passed limiting the number of rounds that could be in magazines in New York, they passed that legislation and sort of forgot that it impacted police departments. So they had to go back to the drawing board when all of a sudden police departments said, hey, we have more than 7 rounds in a magazine. And so they have a long-standing history of making mistakes when trying to promote knee-jerk legislation.
And you're a millennial.
I am.
I didn't know that.
Don't hold that against me.
I didn't know the definition of millennial, but the definition of millennial is what?
Widely accepted, we're looking at the age range of people born between 1980 and 2000, but I would suggest that this isn't limited to millennials. This is something that impacts every generation. Again, listen, we all want work-life balance. We all want to not have so much stress in our lives. If New York wants less stress in the lives of employees, perhaps they should consider lowering taxes, but you cannot legislate lower stress. Because here's the thing. If I go a night or two without checking emails at home, I'm going into work the next day insanely stressed, as are many of my employees, because all that means is you have all of these emails to catch up on the next morning.
Are you guys going to ruin the world?
Are we going to ruin
millennials?
The world? Well, I would
ruin,
say,
not rule, ruin the world.
I would say that I and my fellow millennials who are conservative are going to save the world.
And this law, is there any chance this thing's going to take effect?
I mean, listen, it's New York. I could see something like this passing in New York and in Connecticut. But when we really think through the impact of this, we're talking about defined work hours. What about full-time employees who are salary, who don't have set work hours, who go out to dinner meetings? Maybe they'll go in later in the morning. And one of the other challenges that we face with this is, let's say I make the decision as an employee to check my emails because I want to grow faster in the company and I want to out-hustle everybody else. And then I become disenfranchised. And 2 years later, even though it was my decision, I turn around and say, well, they forced me to.
And this law would actually kill that incentive to work harder, get promoted, and do things that go above and beyond.
I think that any time the government puts its hand in a business and takes away from the ability for an employee to outshine and outperform and show their own skills and abilities, we're making a mistake when it comes to encouraging the growth of employees.
So what do you do on your snowflake test when you find someone's a snowflake?
Well, we just don't hire them. Well, we don't need that in the workplace. We don't need people who aren't willing to hustle and who aren't willing to work for a living. Business is a meritocracy. Those who are willing to invest their time and their resources and their energy and work harder than everybody else, those are the people who are going to win.
And that's what America is founded on, right?
Absolutely. America is founded on hard work and in driving down into the core values of what makes our businesses stand out.
Kyle, thank you very much for joining us. And thank you for explaining to me what a millennial is.
Anytime.